Hi everyone, and welcome to our video on graphing a shifted cotangent curve. So we just graphed non-shifted tangent and cotangent. I've got two problems where I've got shifts, and I'm choosing to do cotangent first. Okay, so let's break this down. Either way, just to scroll real quick, cotangent should look something like this where I'm swirling, except it's going to get shifted. Okay, so we'll do our lengthy process and do our algebra or arithmetic, to get those shifts. All right, so let's rewrite it. Okay, so we need to put it in the correct form. We need it to be y equals 7 cotangent and then a bracket 2 parentheses x minus pi halves. Okay, so again, just like sine and cosine, we like to see it in this form. Oops, not pi halves. Oops, I wrote too quick. Hold on, sorry. Leave that blank. Okay, so we want it in this form because this will help us determine what our A, B, and our shift is. Okay, so currently we need to figure out the shift. Okay, so the form they like is to have x with a coefficient of 1 in the parentheses and then minus or plus whatever. So that whatever this is that I'm currently underlining, we need to factor out immediately. Okay, so that's what happened with that 2 right there. So it got factored out immediately. Okay, and when we factor, what we're doing to see what this term is that's left over is to divide the second term. So the pi halves would get divided by 2. And then pi halves times 1/2, so keep, change, flip. And then that would give us pi fourths. So that's what should go in that set of parentheses there. All right, now we have our shift. And we can double check. So just in blue, I'm just saying, okay, if I did distribute it back in, notice I get 2x. And then 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2 once that simplifies. Okay, so it shows that this is the correct form. And now that we have it in the correct form, we can start picking apart what's important with it. So A is 7. We've got B is 2, which tells us our period. Remember, cotangent is pi over whatever the B value is. So it'd be pi over 2. And then here is our phase shift. So I'm going to mark that in blue. Our phase shift or horizontal shift is positive pi quarters. So remember to change the sign of whatever it's with in the parentheses. So x minus pi fourths means to do the phase shift is positive pi fourths. Okay, anyway, we'll still graph these first. So in the black ink, and then afterwards apply the phase shift. So we'll make a generic cotangent curve. Okay, so I've got my asymptote at x equals 0. The a value is positive. So I know how the shape will go, but let's get our other asymptote. The other asymptote is at x equals pi halves. And we can mark it on the x-axis as well. And then let's get our midpoint between those two asymptotes, and then we'll draw in our cotangent curve from up above downward. Okay, so there's our cotangent curve, and then we could do our half times 3. So halving pi halves, or that would be multiplying the denominator by 2, would give us pi fourths. Multiply the denominator by 2 again would give us pi eighths, and then connect with the curve. That's where that 7 is on the y-axis. And then if we multiply it by 3, well, I'm a little out of room there. I'm going to put it up here. 3 pi eighths is where the next point is of importance, and that's where the negative 7 goes on the y-axis. And then it might be good to put our 0 down too. Okay, so just like our first ones I'm going to highlight, we have 5 important x coordinates, or x values. Some of them aren't coordinates, x values. And with those x values, we now need to apply the phase shift. So I make a table. So I've got my 5 important x values here. So 0, pi eighths, pi fourths, 3 pi eighths, and pi halves. And then our phase shift is telling us we should add pi fourths to all of these. So plus pi fourths, plus pi fourths, oops, plus pi fourths, plus pi fourths plus pi fourths. All right, and some of these need a common denominator. Okay, so let's set those up right now all in the purple. So that one needs to get times by 2. This one needs to get times by 2. And then this one over here needs to get times by 2. Okay, so now that would give us all common denominators, and then let's finish off this simplifying. So the first one is just pi fourths. The next one looks like it's 3 pi eighths. Our next one is 2 pi fourths, but that simplifies. That would be pi halves. Our next one is 5 pi eighths. And this last one, 2 pi plus pi is 3 pi, and then over 4. Okay, so there they all are. Okay, so those are our new important x values. And so there's no vertical shift, that's good. All our phase shift shifted everything to the right. Okay, so I'll give myself plenty of room there to the right. And then what we need to do is start marking our important values. All right, so they're going to stay on this x-axis because there's nothing that is shifted vertically. And I'm going to highlight again, 0 is shifted to pi fourths. Okay, so where I had 0 was where I had an asymptote. Okay, so right here I'm going to say is where pi fourths is and draw in my asymptote. And then 3 pi eighths is next. So I'm gonna do my tick marks first this time. I'm gonna say here's 3 pi eighths. And then let's get all the tick marks actually right now. Okay, so and then our next one is pi halves of importance. So I'm just going through each of these. So I'm saying check, check. I got that one checked. Okay, 5 pi eighths is next. Let's get that one. 5 pi eighths is here about. And then one more, 3 pi halves, or 3 pi quarters, 3 pi over 4. And then still comparing what I've got, the 3 pi quarters, I think I'm going to start there. That's where the other asymptote is. Okay, so I'm just again comparing where I did have the pi halves is now where I have 3 pi fourths. Where I did have pi halves was where I had an asymptote. So now again, I have another asymptote because of the shift. Okay, and then in this picture, we can see, so I'm going to go to this middle point, and put a big old dot there. I can see that's where I should have the midpoint, and that's where I can start to draw my cotangent curve. And I'm saying the pi force where it did cross the x-axis is now at pi halves, which is still crossing the x-axis. Okay, and then the last two, let's go ahead and highlight those two. So pi eighths got moved to be 3 pi eighths. Pi eighths on my original graph was up at 7. Okay, so that's where that one should be as well. So there's the 7 getting marked. And then the last shift was involving 3 pi eighths, moving it to 5 pi eighths. Our original graph with x equals 3 pi eighths put y at -7. There we go. Okay, now I'm just connecting those 3 dots, starting up high toward the first asymptote, and then making my way downward. Okay, there we go. All right, and I think this is all very clear. Like I said before in a different video, if they want the asymptotes labeled, these are vertical lines, so they should be x equals whatever number. So those are the x equals pi fourths and x equals 3 pi fourths. And then let's see, what else we got? Maybe we should check a single point, at least one. Okay, so let's check. I'm going to check 3 pi eighths. So remember this point here is 3 pi eighths and 7. When we do check, we want to plug it back into the original function. Okay, so I'm checking by plugging it in. So I've got y equals 7, cotangent, parentheses, 2, parentheses, 3 pi eighths, parentheses, minus pi halves. And then parentheses, yeah, a little tight. Okay, but let's continue simplifying. Okay, so the 2 and the 8 reduce just a little bit. So that gives us parentheses. The 2 and the 8 would simplify to give me 3 over 4. Let's get a common denominator. Pi halves would become 2 pi over 4. Okay, and then 3 pi minus 2 pi is pi. So that's 7 cotangent pi, and then still over 4. Cotangent of pi quarters is 1. 7 times 1 is 7. Yep, looks good. At least that point is. And then most likely the others are also good with the process that we use. But in case we accidentally made a mistake, if you have time, it might be worthwhile to double check everything. Okay, but that is the final answer there, the full graph. The one in the purple is just saying, oh, there's a point that I checked. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.